Welcome back to Read Aloud with Mr. Fisher. Today we'll be reading Henry's Pirate Surprise, written by Justin C.H. Birch and illustrated by Helen, Poole. Before we get started, I want to do a special shout out to my nephew Liam. I appreciate you watching, and throughout this story I will be asking questions at different points, so if you would like to pause the video and discuss the questions, feel free. So let's get started. Henry's Uncle Richard was a toy maker and lived above his shop. Henry loved to visit because his uncle would always surprise him with new toys. Then he would ask Henry to play with them over the weekend. "You are my chief toy tester," his uncle would say. "It is a very important job." Do you have a favorite relative that you like to go and visit? This time, his uncle had a special surprise for him. On a large table stood an enormous wooden ship. "Wow, a pirate ship!" exclaimed Henry. "It's amazing. This is the Stinking Rose, the finest pirate galleon to sail the 7 seas. But this is not the surprise," said his uncle. "Really? But it's fabulous. What could possibly be more surprising than this?" asked Henry. "I think that honor is mine," said a voice from inside the ship. "The ship can talk?" Henry's mouth fell open wide. "The ship doesn't talk," his uncle started to explain, but then a door opened on the deck and a tiny pirate captain walked into view, took off his hat, bowed to Henry and said, "Captain Eightpiece at your service." Henry couldn't believe his eyes. "This is the best toy you have ever made, Uncle Richard." "Henry, Captain Eightpiece is real, and so is the rest of his crew," Uncle Richard whispered. "Absolutely," cried Captain Eightpiece. "My crew and I have been looking for a good ship. Fortunately, we came to your uncle's shop and found this wonderful vessel. We set sail tomorrow." What toy would you like to come alive? Which one of your toys would you like to come alive? "But you can't be real. You're only 6 inches high," exclaimed Henry. 6.5, actually. Captain Eightpiece stood tall. "Well, if I'm not real, then you won't be able to feel this, will you?" He took out his cutlass, marched over to Henry, and poked him in the hand. "Ouch!" shouted Henry. "He did that to me too," smiled Henry's uncle. "Then he paid me for the ship with gold coins. We're going to help Captain Eightpiece and his crew launch the ship tomorrow. Let me introduce you to my crew, dear boy," said the captain. "Men, on deck now," he roared, and 4 tiny men appeared on the deck of the ship. "This is Barney, Call, the first mate. He is second in command." "And Limpy Pit, the buzzin'. He makes sure all the crew members do their jobs properly." "Periwinkle is the second mate and is in charge of navigation." "And finally, Razor Clam, the helmsman. He mans the helm, which means he steers the ship." Which job would you want to have if you were on a pirate ship? Captain Eightpiece looked up at Henry. "We could do with a cabin boy, but unfortunately you're a bit, well, too big. However, we've got lots of jobs to do. If you want to help, that'd be nice." So Henry scrubbed the deck with a toothbrush. He stacked marbles that could be fired in the cannon. He put the pirate flag on top of the mast. and he filled matchboxes with flour, cereal, and other foods to get ready for the long journey. Henry stayed with the pirate crew until bedtime. The crew told him about their adventures of sailing the high seas, battling scary monsters, and finding treasure. He could have listened to them all night. What questions would you have asked the pirate crew if you could ask them questions? When Uncle Richard told him it was time for bed, Henry reluctantly bid the pirates goodnight and promised to help them launch the Stinking Rose in the river in the morning. Then he went up to bed and was asleep in minutes. What do you think is going to happen next? A noise downstairs woke Henry in the middle of the night. He heard a door squeak and then the sound of muffled voices. Somebody was breaking into the toy shop. Henry crept out of bed and tiptoed out of his room and across the corridor to his uncle's room. Then a voice from downstairs drifted up to Henry. "Blimey, Dave, look at that pirate ship. That'd fetch a pretty penny. Let's just steal that and get out of here quickly." Henry knew he needed to scare the burglars away. He was desperately trying to think of a plan when he felt something run up his pajama pant leg and along his arm. Then he heard a voice whisper in his ear. "Trying to figure out how to catch the burglars, are you? Good man." Captain Eightpiece swung from Henry's ear onto his nose and looked him in the eyes. "Limpy, Barney, and Perry are hiding in the ship, ready to surprise them. Razor's underneath the table, up to no good, I'd imagine. What's your plan?" whispered Henry. "We're pirates, my boy. We'll fight them." And with that, Captain Eightpiece jumped off Henry's nose and ran down his arm, then onto the floor where he disappeared into the darkness. The two burglars were now struggling with the Stinking Rose. "Help me lift this ship up," squeezed the shorter one. The larger thief bent over the ship. "Ouch, something bit my hand." "Shh, you big baby," the smaller burglar scoffed. "Put your back into it." "Ow, something bit me too." "Ouch, and again." Henry tried not to laugh. The crew was poking the burglars' hands with swords. Then Henry heard the buzzing of an engine. He looked up and saw a remote control helicopter. Captain Eightpiece was throwing tiny bags of flour into the thieves' eyes. "Stop, you scoundrels!" Captain Eightpiece shouted. "Quick, run! Let's get out of here!" cried the thieves. But when the burglars tried to run, they tripped. Razor had tied their shoelaces together. "Yahoo! Henry, wake your uncle and call the police!" Captain Eightpiece jumped onto the larger burglar. Razor jumped onto the shorter one's chin and threatened him with his cutlass. "I don't believe it. I'm seeing things. There are pirate pixies in here," croaked the big thief as he fainted. Do you think Henry should have waited and let the pirates do all that? Or do you think he should have gone and got his uncle immediately when he realized someone was in their toy shop? Henry's uncle had already called the police when Henry went to get him. He and Henry went downstairs to find the two moaning burglars tied up, but there was no sign of the pirates. Only if you listened very carefully could you hear laughing coming from the Stinking Rose. The police arrived and took the burglars away. They congratulated Henry and his uncle for catching the two men and told them that they would be rewarded. The police asked if they knew why the burglars kept talking about 6-inch tall pirates, but Henry and his uncle pretended not to know. The next morning, Henry and Uncle Richard carried the stinking rose to the river and helped Captain Eightpiece launch the ship. It floated perfectly. Captain Eightpiece thanked Henry and Uncle Richard for the ship. "That was lots of fun last night, Henry. If you ever grow smaller, you can definitely be my cabin boy." With a tip of his hat and a graceful bow, Captain Eightpiece jumped onto the stinking rose, and he and his crew sailed off toward the seven seas and new adventures. The end.